You awaken to the grating rasp of metal against unyielding stone, a sound that slices through the pre-dawn hush like a harbinger of fate. Shafts of pale morning light pierce the narrow slit of a window, high in the rough-hewn wall of your family's modest hall, illuminating your father as he hunches over a whetstone. His hands move with the relentless precision of a man arming for war, honing the edge of his dagger until it gleams with lethal promise. In the shadowed corner, your mother perches on a low stool, her frame bowed under an invisible burden, fingers twisting the worn beads of her rosary in a frenzy of silent supplication. The words of her prayer drift like smoke from a dying fire, faint murmurs of intercession to saints long invoked. This is the day of your nuptials. You are but 12 summers old. The gown of silk, painstakingly stitched by your mother's calloused hands, drapes from a crude wooden peg like a funeral pall awaiting its occupant. Its hue, a profound indigo harvested from the rare woad plant and bartered at the cost of 3 months' harvest from your family's meager granary, embodies all that slips from your grasp this morn. The fleeting, in mere hours, you shall be escorted to the sacred threshold, not as a consort woven from threads of affection, but as chattel in a ledger of alliances, a contract etched in the currency of blood and bone, forging chains between houses where survival eclipses sentiment. This is no union spun from the gilded yarns of troubadour ballads or the tender vows of latter-day affections. Nay, this is the essence of matrimony as it bound the fates of women through the shadowed epochs of human chronicle. A merciless barter wherein daughters served as coin, infants as gambits on a chessboard of power. Before we unravel these veiled chronicles of endurance and anguish, tales that whisper from the dust of forgotten annals, pause. If this glimpse into history's veiled undercurrents stirs your soul, bestow a like upon this offering. Subscribe to our channel for further voyages into the concealed corridors of the past, and in the comments below, share the distant corner of the globe from whence you join us. It humbles and exhilarates me that the betrothal parchment unfurls across the scarred oak table like a decree of exile, its Latin script flickering in the unsteady glow of tallow candles that spit shadows across the chamber. Dominus Geoffrey de Montfort, thrice and 40 years, bereft of spouse, lord of 3 manors and 200 serfs, doth seek a maiden wedded. Domina Matilda, 11-tide, progeny of Dominus Will. The parleys had stretched across 3 arduous days, not from the labyrinthine weave of clauses, but from your sire's unyielding avarice, wringing every. You were, in truth, his paramount treasure, tender enough to be shaped like wet clay in a potter's hands, ripe for the sowing of heirs, and exalted by noble strain to hoist his house upon a loftier perch. That you had ne'er laid eyes upon this prospective lord mattered naught. That your playthings were yet carved dolls of elderwood proved a trifling hindrance, surmountable. It was no pact of peers, drawn by mutual flame, but a covenant of coin and kinship, oft sealed ere the betrothed could toddle unassisted. The Holy Church, which in later centuries would cloak wedlock in veils of sanctity and ardour, regarded it through much of the Middle Epochs as a grudging concession to mortal frailty, a bulwark against the cardinal vice of carnal wandering. For noble maidens in the zenith of the High Middle Ages, the bridal age hovered betwixt 12 and 14 winters. For daughters of the soil, it lingered nearer 16. Yet across the chasms of rank, the inexorable verity endured. Wedlock descended upon women as an unbidden tempest, not a harbour they might chart. Your mother's hands, softened by years of hearth-tending yet trembling now with veiled tempests, secure the wooden toggles of your bridal raiment. Each clasp bears the incised emblem of your line, a swan transfixed by an arrow's cruel barb, a sigil that mocks with prophetic irony. She has endured the yoke of your father these 16 years, pledged at thrice your age to a stranger, unveiled only at the altar's. 9 fruits of her womb she yielded, 5 alone outlived the cradle's fragile vigil. Of ardour she speaks not, only of fealty, subservience, and the artful dance through a lord's caprice. Heed this, child, she breathes, her exhalation a fleeting warmth against your chilled lobe. The rite itself unfolds as a communal tableau, contrived to render the exchange irrevocable, etched indelibly upon the collective conscience. Divergent from the solemn sacraments of contemporary vows, medieval nuptials bore scant ecclesiastical pomp. The cleric's role oft dwindled to a perfunctory benison at the portal, ere the profane pageant commenced. The rite pivoted upon attestation, upon the throng's solemn. You are conveyed through the muddied lanes of the hamlet, a procession akin to the march of an oblation to ancient gods, The throng amassed not in jubilation, but as sentinels of verity. In an era where vellum tomes eluded the common ken, such spectacles wove the warp of remembrance. These folk would recall this dawn, would avow beneath oath, should shadows of doubt cloud the bond's legitimacy or the progeny it might yet yield. At the basilica's lintel looms Father Benedict, his visage hewn from weathered granite, unyielding as the edifice behind him. He has orchestrated legions of such rites, beheld myriad maidens herded to their dooms like ewes to the shearer's blade. His latinate incantations cast, "Wilt thou have this man to thy wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better for worse, for richer for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death us do part." No query of your assent echoes in the Rite. Your murmur, "I will," fades like mist before the gale, scarcely stirring the boughs. Dominus Geoffrey advances to seize his acquisition. To you, he is enigma incarnate, yet his spectre haunts your slumber's fringes. Whispers have slithered through the thatch of his prior consort, extinguished at 15 in labour's forge, of contusions blooming like dark roses upon her limbs and countenance, of her waning to a wraith of silence ere the end. His gaze appraises you now as a churl might a filly at fair probing vitality, promise of foal. The circlet he bestows upon your digit gleams not in auric splendour, but in base iron's sombre sheen, its heft a burden upon your slender grasp. Iron's selection was no caprice of thrift alone. It evoked the forge's unbreaking alloy, adamant, inexorable, perpetual, mirroring the indissoluble fetters of the spousal vow. Post-rite revelry ensues, a macabre carousal lamenting your enfranchisement's eclipse. The grand solar of your paternal domain bristles with holly boughs pilfered from frost-laced groves and flambeaux that belch resinous haze. Trestles sag beneath viands of spitted boar, wheaten loaves pale as moonlight, and flagons brimming with barley's amber draught. The assembly, elders all, architects of your undoing, hoist chalices in salutes to fruitfulness, to lineage's unspooling thread, to the pact's pecuniary bloom. You perch adjacent to this alien lord, your toes dangling shy of the dais, a diminutive effigy in the oaken throne. He queries you in fits your tutelage's breadth, your vigor's pulse, the rhythm of your moon's ebb. Monosyllables tumble, the trencher before you congeals untouched, your vitals roiling in revolt. As Vesper's cloak deepens, diversions ignite the gloaming. A wandering gleeman, cloak threadbare from road's caress, trills lays of chivalric rapture, ethereal visions of paladins and dames entwined in ardour's silken snare, of fealty that defies the stars. The dissonance pierces you, the doctrine of Finamore, birthed amid the sun-baked courts of Aquitaine's troubadours, exalted liaisons beyond the marital pale flames kindled betwixt wedded nobility and errant cavaliers, fervent for their very prescription, oft unquenched to preserve the thrill. The ecclesia thundered anathemas upon such heresies, yet they burgeoned as desert blooms. This veneration of adulterous ideal unveiled matrimony's abyss, so barren of tender tether that folk contrived a parallel creed to name the elixir we term romance. Spousal bonds pivoted upon mandate, domain, and seed-sowing. Affection, if it dared flicker, kindled in alcoves of secrecy, a mutiny against the edifice. As nocturnal hours swell, the reveller's sobriety ebbs into vinous clamour. Discourse veers to ribaldry's brink, quips laced with innuendo on bridal eves, on taming fledgling consorts, on the imperative of swift seeding. You glean but fragments, yet the lecherous grins and guffaws etch their intent upon your marrow. Your mother materializes it. The bedding rite crowns the horrors of medieval wedlock, a communal desecration that alchemized ravishment into rite. The festal cohort would convoy the pair to their sanctum, dispensing counsel laced with vulgarity, vouchsafing the bond's carnal ratification. The bride's maidenhead, presumed sacrosanct, underwent communal scrutiny. Her stained linens paraded as testament to purity's forfeiture and dominion's assertion. You ascend the spiraling stair of mortared flint, to a garret primed for this profane sacrament. The chamber huddles austere and gelid, illumined by a lone taper whose flame capers like imps upon the vaulted stone. The couch looms tyrannous, a monolithic frame of oak, pallet of chaff swathed in homespun webs. It evokes less a bower of bliss than a scaffold of judgment. The matrons of the cortege divest you with the dispassion of ritual, digits deft as those of seamstresses mending a rent. Your azure kirtle is reverently furled, destined for ancestral reliquary, a talisman of this eclipse. Your chemise, gossamer as spider's silk, avails naught against the chill's fang or the assembly's prurient stare. Dominus Geoffrey strides in amid his retinue, already sloughing garb. Vapours of ale upon his breath, a potion that might yet grant oblivion's grace, lulling him to slumber ere the ordeal. Yet this eve, his eyes burn with acquisitive fire, intent on harvest of his coin. The cleric intones a litany o'er the alcove, asperging the palliasse with chrismed draught, beseeching fruitfulness from the divine loom. The throng surges nigh, proffering barbs and benedictions. Swains mime the impending rite with gestures grotesque as mummer's farce. The dames incline heads in sanction, deeming your quaking a rite of passage, unremarkable as harvest's toil. This communal profanation of seclusion offended no medieval scruple. It fortified the pact's sinew. An unconsummated union dissolved like mist annulable, alliances unravelled, parchments voided. The observers warded against future feints of impotence, sealing the commiss's consummation. At length, Providence intervenes, the multitude recedes, though not sans parting precepts from the veiled initiates. Yield utterly, utter no cry. Contemplate your charge to forge scions. Your mother brushes your brow with lips like chilled petals, murmuring an ave that mingles with her saline cascade upon your cheek. The portal seals you are his domain, his herd, his whim's vessel. Lex Icon provides no aegis for consorts. The pulpit preaches that a dame's form is her lord's domain, denial a heresy against the spousal canon, her telos the gestation of his line. Heedless of her, the medieval edifice of troth reared upon patriarchal monolith, the spouse as paterfamilias, sovereign of hearth and hall, proprietor of chattels inclusive of his bride's corpus. The nuptial oaths mirrored this asymmetry, the groom vowing succour and solace. What transpired within that vault was no dalliance of equals, but subjugation's inaugural thrust. Grimoires of spousal lore, penned by sires for scions, counselled the taming of novice brides, quelling innate recoil, imprinting hegemony from Genesis. You stir to crimson blooms upon the webs, corroboration of the claim's fruition, soon to parade for communal gaze. Your limbs protest with novel torment, each sinew a lament for despoiled innocence. You navigate as one thrice your years, every shift a dirge for autonomy's shade. Dominus Geoffrey, attired for sally to his holdings, addresses you with barrister's brevity. Delineate your mandates as chatelain steward the domain, marshal the varlets, host the gentry, and team with his seed. No egress sans his fiat. No parley with males absent his ward. The juridical scaffold of medieval troth effaced the bride's autonomy. No dominion o'er goods, no pact sans his seal, no pleas to bar or bench, no testamentary writ absent his nod. Coverture's mantle subsumed her persona beneath his aegis. She dissolved. Your fresh bastion looms as citadel corporeal and spectral alike. The fortalice of Dominus Geoffrey crowns a barrow o'erlooking the hamlet, its cyclopean ramparts defying siege. No wards bar the inner portal's bolts, repelled marauders, not inmates. Yet captivity's grip is ironclad, woven of statute, shibboleth. Elders among them invoke the shade of his antecedent spouse. Her buoyant ingress, her gradual eclipse into reticence's veil, her agonized exit in labour whilst he quaffed below stairs. Your epochs forge a litany of yielding and fortitude. Ere cockcrow you kneel in orison, morn yields to domestic oversight, vesper to distaff and quill, gloaming to his alcove's summons. Seclusion eludes you no alcove for reverie, conception quickens as antiquity's law decreed. For medieval leechcraft grasped naught of gestation save the adage that oft-bedded youth swift swelled with child. No law of lunar rhythms, no stratagems against surfeit spawning, no inkling that perennial instincture imperiled the frame. At 14, your inaugural travail rends you devoid of salubrity's law, opiate's grace, or chirurgeon's blade. It devolved to primal fray twixt vitality and void. The reaping toll upon mothers, soared vertiginous scholars, reckon 10 to 2/10 of dames, the accoucheurs, Matrona Agnes, a crone whose palms bear the patina of myriad midwiferys, wields empiric cunning laced with rustic thaumaturgy. She arrays a jasper talisman upon your swell to blunt agony's edge, suspends raptor talons about your throat for swift egress, and in your cries rend the ether till timbre fails, then persist in voiceless rictus, jaws agape in mute imploration. Torment surges as tempests untamed, each billow a rending of your core. Agnes plies you with acrid draughts that purge your innards, then counter the issue, when wrested forth, proves alas. Discontent saturates the air like unburnt tinder. A girl holds barter's gleam fodder for future pacts, but pales beside the sun every liege covered. In medieval weave, sires wielded plenary sway o'er offspring's nomenclature, nurture and destiny. Maternal tether, profound as ocean's pull, claimed no juridical strand. Progeny appertained to patriarchs as brides to their lords. Convalescence drags as a chained penance, your juvenile frame scarred by the fray. Pyrexia grips you for a moon's cycle, sapping sinew till delirium's fog enshrouds. Agnes deploys further botanicals and amulets, but antiquity's pharmacopoeia fathomed not sepsis's stealth, nor reposes. You plead for respite, for mending's grace. But such pleas dissolve in troth's calculus. A dame's form was liege's domain, invocable sans regard to her weal or woe. The gyre recommences, gestation anew, travail's torment, another daughter, then yet one more. By 18 winters, 4 issues have crowned your brow, 2 snatched by infancy's thief. Your form, erstwhile lithe as a sapling, withers to veteran stock furrowed by ceaseless spawning, aged beyond chronicle. Gazing into a burnished brazen reflector, you confront your mother's spectre. Or medieval dames navigated maturity in perpetual trimesters of swell, throw, or mend. The mean matron who evaded youth's reaper birthed 6 to 8, of whom half fell ere quinquennial mark. The spirit's levy of iterated bereavement loomed colossal, yet interments the rapport with your spouse, if rapport it merits, rears on dominion's scaffold and obeisance's root. He addresses you sole to command or castigate. You reply but when hailed, in terms of utmost deference. No colloquy blooms, no communal pursuits, no soul's communion. You are chattel efficacious for lineage and ledgers, not a being whose menials, though proximate, span a gulf of station barring true amity. Neighbouring chatelaines loom as adversaries in intrigue's web, their accords tethered to liege's leagues. You wander an isle of utter desolation. Your progeny affords scant solace, hemmed by custom's decree. You must nurture without excess, foster without shield. They appertain to their sire, who arbitrates their forge. Your province spans suckling and toddling, but at reason's dawn a rod no girthier than a pollux might scourge. Sequestration, victual's stint, or public shame, all cloaked as domestic rectitude. Your lord's ire flares not unceasing, but looms as perpetual thunderhead. He lashes for tardy vespers, barren moons penance mandates, rote avowals, yet the confessor probes, wifely lapses o'er your tribulations, obedience's fealty, yielding to his behests, modesty's veil o'er cogitations. Your dolors merit no shriving, but stoic traversal. The annals blur in a vortex of swell, throw, and forfeiture. 9 burdens you shoulder, 5 enduring to maturity's gate. Each genesis more grueling, each mend protracted as ebbing tide. Your frame, slender from Genesis, 15 years wedded you have weathered, yet endurance mocks vitality's spark. You subsist in hypervigil's thrall, scanning his humour's barometer, primed to appease, genuflect, or abide. Economically, brides loomed as costly stakes demanding yield. Your paternal portion bulked ample, yet but prologue. Your liege must sustain your raiment, salves, sepulture. Barren of male issue, you epitomize fiscal hemorrhage. This ledger's lash amplified nuptial frictions. Fruitless dames, or those yielding sole daughters, drew blame for ledger's bleed. Remedy oft sought annulment's blame. Nullity's path, though canonically viable, exacted pecuniary and reputational toll. Skewed 'gainst dames, pleas hinged on consanguinity, debility, or unratified right, demanding choral testimony and oft indignities of corporeal probe. Petitioning brides braved smears of infidelity or malefice. Your consort ne'er pursues dissolution belike sated by your yield, or daunted by uproar's cost yet dread spectre haunts. Discard as dulled scythe, supplanted by youth's verdant promise. This terror twins mortality's shadow. Medieval dames danced with death at every turn, childbed's scythe, pestilence's breath, cudgel's kiss. You have mourned cohorts felled by gestation's reaper, each rite a memento mori, augury of your terminus. Psyche's ravage from medieval troth defies facile grasp. Even scarred modern souls scarce fathom the void of recourse. No severance, no statute's shield, no communal succor, no bolt hole. Fugitives netted and remanded, off to augmented chastisement, self-slaughter a sin damning to perdition's pit. Thus bloomed conditioned capitulate. From cradle's hush, dames imbibed their dolors as norm, nay virtue, fulfillment soul in ministration. Your daughters embody dual-edged blade, adoration's blaze and despond's abyss. You cherish them with feral intensity, yet foresee their replication of your dolors. Alienor, Elevantide now, draws suitor's gaze, parleys stir, the Gyre's perpetuation crowns troth's cruelties, each dam rearing heirs to mirror her manacles, her maimings, her maws. No ascent, no amelioration, no vista of brighter dawns. The apparatus self-sustained, enshrining dame's impotence, liege's lash. Medieval troth loomed not solitary woe, but societal sinew, moulding realms from throne to cloister. Dame's eclipse stemmed not happenstance, but axiom, suffusing polity, piety, and purse. Their gratis toils, demesne husbandry, progeny husbandry, looms weave upheld the epoch's frame, yet veiled. These tenets thrived not in laxity, but vigilant husbandry by tribunals, altars, domains, deeming dame's yoke bedrock of concord. Ideological bulwarks drew from gospel, antiquity's sages, rustic saws all converging on dame's innate subservience, governance for collective weal. No tyranny perceived, but cosmos's cadence, heaven's blueprint, reason's proof. Your liege perishes at your 32, felled by hunt's caprice astray. No heritable claim to his domain, it cascades to male issue or suzerain. Your sojourn provisional, at heir's caprice. Lente reigns scant moons, ere Geoffrey's pyre cools, aspirant circle, scenting value in your tested womb. Remarriage's prospect chills as polar zephyr, yet autonomy invites predation's more. Your late kin's sibling, estate's new steward, hastens the compact to purge your shade. You, weathered by spawns and scourges, yet fecund, command slighter portion, no you plight troth in shadowed Rite. Few attesters, then convoyed to fresh bastion, another vault of vigil. This second bondage eclipses the prime in venom. Ricardus savours not mere dominion but Dola's spectacle lashes for sport, not ire, degradations that scar spirit o'er flesh. He revels in your nullity, dependence's chain, dearth of egress. Psyche's wounds accrue, sundering's ache rivals birth's throe, yet you cloak it as all sentiments. For frailty invites fang. At 35, deemed geriatric by era's gauge, your sixth instincture taxes your ravaged husk. Nausea eternal, throbs unrelenting, frailties born of penury and Psyche's siege. Travail, his cudgel's harvest yields fractured cage and innards ruin, unhealing as grudge. Mend crawls halting, throbs eternalize motion's curse. Cycles falter, cease frames mutiny 'gainst further yoke. Yet sterility births fresh barbs, a barren consort, fiscal sink, emblem of squandered stake. Twilight years shroud in exile's cowl, despair's deepening. He enthrones a fledgling paramour, you ache to counsel, succor, sunder the gyre, yet impotence binds as adamant. Medieval troth bloomed no epochal lapse, but society's sinew, reared on liege's throne and dame's thrall. Savagery essential, not errant, to hoard might and mammon in male vaults whilst dames toiled as seed slaves. Troth channeled carnal flux to heir's forge, deeming spousal dolors not flaw, but oblation for faith's bulwark. Societal lash comprehensive, pitiless. Domains policed errant brides, abusive lieges unrebuked as orders wardens. Resistors doom public, exemplary fugitives run to earth by communal hunt, branded to cowkin. You expire at 38, he barters already for a 4 and 10 lass, third yoke in Gyre's remorseless churn. Each dame's oblation upholds the lattice of liege's sway. Your sepulchre, if graced, bears soul nomenclature and temporal bounds, silent on aspirations quelled, terrors harboured, progeny cherished, resistances veiled. This void deliberate, axiom, dame's odyssey irrelevant, dolors innate, tales unworthy ink. Rare scribes cloistered or exalted scribed within yoke's confines, self-voice a peril. Troth Psyche's scar-etched epochs beyond sufferers. Domestic ire's norm, child, Rite's sanction, dame's reduction to womb's forge all imprinted culture's clay, lingering post-legal shift. Households birth scions schooled in Aya's normalcy, dame's inferiority, retort. No inequity perceived, but nature's writ. Dame's woe necessity, not riddle. Dissentient tones quashed, exiled, hushed. Purses boon colossal for system stewards. Dames e gratis forge husbandry, weave, victual, nurture economy's unseen spine. Frames as mills for labourers, levies, dolors veiled, unrequited. Legal lattice no rustic hedge, but intricate snare, calibrate. Piety's creed matched in subtlety. Kirk's tomes wove why dames throw redemptive, yield virtuous, pang salvific, not slurs idle, but faiths forged to gild. Societal gears implacable. Domains watch, purses chain, laws void, flesh's bruise conjoined to immure dames in erosions slow. Escapers pursued not soul by lieges, but clans deeming autonomy, anarchy's seed. Your chronicle, yet in obscurity's veil gleams resilience's ghost. 'Gainst world's grind to pulverize spirits, core endured. In pauses, twixt lashes, in fevered palms caress, in cradle songs for fading blooms, dames reclaimed humanity, medieval troth no mischance, but contrivance deliberate, a mechanism transmuting souls to assets. It triumphed, girded by epoch's pillars, altar, archive, bourse, kin, commune. It faltered soul as sufferers, o'er generations, smuggled memory of forfeiture, ember of reclamation for daughters unborn. The enigma spanning centuries queries not troth's brutality, but its tendrils' persistence in guises subtle. Subjugation's form fled, yet dependence's debt lingers. Bedding's pomp ceased, yet alcove's wounds fester. Portions you are 12 anew, in paternal solar, metals scrape on stone a knell, mother's beads a frantic rosary. Gyre seals as commenced with whetstone's hiss, impotent dame's susurrus. Yet amid gloam, scarce above gale's moan, stirs variant plea, that daughters of daughters,